Hey folks, this is BestInSlot, and tonight we're going to go through just a small handful of concerns about Evolution 2 before it launches in 3 weeks today. 3 weeks, absolute madness. Now I do need to get some stuff sorted nice and early so people are a little bit nicer to me in the comments section. I know what's coming. Firstly, these are my biggest, inverted commas, concerns. That doesn't mean they are big concerns, it means they're the biggest concerns. I am, rather predictably, incredibly hyped for Evolution 2, and basically all of the new content looks really good, but I do think it's important to step back now and again. No game is perfect after all, and I think it's actually a nice thing to identify areas that we could see improved and developed post-release and even before release hits. That said, I'm sure I'll do a 5 or 10 things I'm most excited about video and shove more coal onto the hype fire soon enough. It's also worth mentioning that this is largely based on either pre-release footage or my own gameplay, which again was a development build. Things are liable to change, or things could be kept hidden from us by those crafty frontier folk, which kind of makes them sound like a race of hobbits or something. Either way, don't take all of this too seriously. I'm just starting a discussion, putting forward what I think could be areas for improvement. Now surely nobody will hear all that and then accuse me of being nitpicky, right? Right, let's get started. First up is the lack, seemingly, of new attractions. Evolution 2 is shipping with a surprising amount of new building options when you consider the aviary and lagoon, and they've all got their new attachments, as well as the new shops. And of course we have multiple styles for a lot of these buildings as well, and we've got new buildings like, say, the amphitheatre from Lost World Chaos Theory. But what we don't really seem to have is new, proper, interactable attractions, with the vehicle tours, viewing towers and viewing galleries remaining the only realistic options yet again. This is probably one of the biggest areas I think Jurassic World Evolution could have been improved on, because it kind of stopped Evolution feeling like an actual Jurassic World, so I'm a little surprised to see it neglected actually, but I do think it's ripe for post-launch love, like astronauts getting down in space. Sure, we've got aquariums and cinemas and all that as part of the shop system, well, it's now the new facility system or whatever it's called, but they are largely uninteractive. Instead, balloon tours, helicopter tours, viewing domes, log viewers like in Rexy's apartment, boat tours, unlikely but still, there's a bunch of options out there to give our parks a little bit more va-va-voom and actual guest interaction and things we ourselves can interact with. And considering how much more complete Evolution 2 will be compared to Evolution 1 at launch, I am hoping this is an area we see expanded on in future updates. Oh, and I also want a cow feeder, thanks. As in a feeder that feeds the cow to the I don't want to feed the cow, I want to feed the cow to the, you know what I mean. Secondly is the new skin system. Now in reality, despite 2 gameplay sessions, we're still not totally sure how this is going to work in game, but we've got a pretty good idea at this point, and after the recent reveal of 1 pattern per dinosaur, I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of variety for the dinosaurs. It's worth mentioning that we inherently have more skin colour pattern combinations per dinosaur than the last game, that is a definite. Thanks to being able to change the base colour and then the optional additional pattern, which inherently like doubles the combos basically. My concern though is that these patterns are often quite subtle looking. Some of them are very noticeable, but some of them are very subtle. And that wouldn't be a big deal, except that the basal skins for the dinosaurs, the base skins, have clearly been toned down quite a lot to accommodate for these new patterns. Just take a look at the Suchomimus from my Chaos Theory gameplay. It's a very plain base skin. My concern is that if the patterns aren't very exciting for every dinosaur, and that dinosaur has a fairly dull base set, then we could end up with some fairly boring looking dinosaurs. And if you have to use the pattern every time for your dinosaur to look good, then a lot of that variety is inherently lost. Now maybe this could just be a very personal thing to me. Some of you prefer very sort of, plain dinosaurs in terms of their patterning and colours and stuff like that. I've always had a fondness for the more elaborately patterned and coloured dinosaurs, and either way this is an area that I suspect could pretty easily be improved upon post-launch with new patterns and such. I just want some fancy pants dinosaurs, that's all. Speaking of which, where is my beloved Deinonychus in all his tadpoley glory? I'm getting a little nervous. Thirdly is the one I think most likely to be fixed by launch realistically, and that's just some of the animation work. Whilst the animations themselves are beautiful as always, and we've got so many more now, which is fantastic, some of them are still looking a little stilted, particularly in transition. Now with things like pack hunting, I think this is expected to an extent. You trade in some butteriness for some dynamism, and that dynamic nature makes things like clipping or slightly awkward transitions a lot more expected. Now whilst I'm hopeful the quantity of butter will be improved in the coming weeks, the main animation issue is actually not with pack hunting and stuff, but with Dinosaur Locomotion, which you may have seen in my Strufia Mimers gameplay in particular, and this locomotion is often bizarre, frankly, with dinosaurs moonwalking and hot stepping all over the place like a prehistoric lord of the dance. This did seem better already in the second gameplay session, but I did spot it again once or twice. Again, this is likely a result of more dynamic dinosaur movement in general, but if we could both be buttery and dynamic, then we'd have a party, really. A buttery party. Fourthly, which is a weird word really, looks wrong as I type it. Fourthly. Anyway, oddly enough, despite being super excited for lagoons, and in particular my best buddy the Attenborosaurus, well at least until the magical talking Leoplodon makes its official appearance, I am a little concerned that lagoons are going to end up a little bit dull compared to aviaries. Now whilst we do have a shark feeder, viewing areas that sink down, which is very cool, and we've got the actual fish feeder to place, once you're done, you're just kind of done, you know? Contrast that with the new aviaries, which let you build directly inside of them, controlling rock placement and foliage and the like, and directly influencing the habitat of your creatures. I thought we might get a similar mechanism for the lagoon. Letting us place rocks and aquatic foliage on the bottom might seem a little pointless when you're rarely going to see it, but the biggest thing we cried out for in Evolution 1 was really more customization, and at the moment it seems all lagoons are going to look basically the same, and they also don't look very exciting from the top either. It's worth mentioning, I say that a lot, don't I, actually, that the lagoons do come with plants and rocks already inside them. They're not, flat bottomed. They do look like a natural terrain at the bottom of the water, and it actually looks pretty good. It's perfectly serviceable. It would just be great to be able to throw some more in there, and even some more attractions. The aviaries can have jeep tours drive through them, which is incredible, but it does make the lagoon seem a little uninteractive in comparison, and I think we all know what we want: submarine tours. Thank you very much, that would be awesome. Fifthly, and if I'm honest, I did have to rack my brain a little bit to come up with 5, but 4 is a stupid number, down with 4. So fifthly, and I have to hedge my bets a little with this one because of the lack of footage, again we don't know for sure, but I do have some concerns that the herbivores are once again just sort of walking bags of meat for the amusement of our carnivores. The best footage of this really comes from my Chaos Theory gameplay, and as people pointed out, the Parasaurolophus are probably tired, although some of them had just been released when they got hunted, and my raptors are hyper aggressive, like 30% angrier or something. If I'm honest, I don't think that made as much of a difference as people think it did, but I don't know that for sure. Regardless, even when the Paras did manage to get several kicks onto a single Velociraptor, really cool kicks by the way, it looks great, it sounds fantastic, it's got a proper wallop to it, but even when the Raptors got kicked repeatedly, the damage really did seem quite minimal. Now, generally speaking, a Parasaurolophus is probably quite low on the stats chart, but given its humongous size advantage over Velociraptor, and really that means the kicks and the shake-offs and stuff like that should be doing substantial damage. They should be able to kill. There's a few things I'd like to see here really improved. The first is more damage and the potential to kill. That might well be a thing, but given how many times I had Paras hunted by raptors and I didn't see it once, it does make me a little bit concerned about that. Secondly, is a little bit more reaction from the para when it's being caught. I'm totally okay with, I know some people complained about it, but I'm totally fine with when the Paras get caught and they're being pack hunted and surrounded, the Para stands there and it stands its ground and fights back. That's fine, it doesn't have to run away. The problem is it stands there, but it stands there very chill. It's not stomping or roaring or looking scared. It's kind of like, yeah, come eat me bro, it's fine. I'd like to see a little bit more reaction from the para in that situation. Thirdly, I don't think there are many circumstances really that a single Velociraptor should be able to take down a Parasaurolophus. I am curious how other people feel about this, but from my perspective, what do you think about small carnivores being unable, just flat out being unable to hunt the slightly larger herbivores unless they have a pack of at least 2, maybe 3. I would put a hard limit on it, that if you have a single raptor in an enclosure with a bunch of Parasaurolophus, that raptor will never hunt a para. Or maybe there's extreme circumstances where the para is sick or already injured or something like that and the raptor could get involved. Otherwise, I think it shouldn't even really try it, because it's a needless risk that they wouldn't actually take in nature, you know? Unless desperate. So maybe you tie it to the hunger need, and when the raptor goes down to like 10% of hunger, you know, it's dying of hunger, then it attacks out of desperation. That would be a really nice, more realistic interpretation of the mechanic. Fourthly, I'd like to see the hunts fail more, basically. My raptors rampaged hard against the paras, and not once did a para actually escape. I don't need them to constantly run away and stuff like that, but it'd be nice if, you know, let's say it's 1v1 or 1v2, the para's healthy, puts up a really good fight, gets a few good kicks in, and the raptors realise, right, you know, maybe one dies, maybe a couple are injured, whatever, and they realise this is a bad hunt, and they back off a little bit, and the para then goes about the rest of its life. Sure, it gets hunted again in the future, but that's the circle of life. I'd like to see the hunts fail entirely, not just fail on a temporary basis, because it still has a feeling of inevitability to it at the moment. I am hopeful, as I say, that this is simply an issue of low stats, and some of the tougher herbivores, particularly your ceratopsids, your ankylosaurs, etc., will be able to do a lot more damage and resist those attacks a lot better. That's it from me anywho, though as I struggled for 5, I did think of one extra bonus small one, and that is Dinosaur Breakouts. Don't seem to have really improved or changed at all, other than the new security system, and they're kind of just still walloping fences with their heads. I've said walloping a lot today. This is inevitable to an extent, but with the smaller carnivores, and we know the velociraptors in particular, instead of just bashing their heads against it, which would inevitably kill them, it might be better to see them try to climb over the fence. I think that's something we all want. I get that that's quite a difficult thing to animate, but it would look fantastic, and I really hope that's something they're considering long term. And I am hopeful with the new security rating system that will no longer have Struthiomimus bashing its head against concrete until it escapes. Again, something we'll have to try out very soon. Anyway, again, I am very excited about Evolution 2, and the fact I can even talk about things like lagoons and dynamic hunting or the tons of new buildings shows just how big a leap it is in a lot of ways over Evolution 1. Let's put it this way. My next list will be 10 positive things, so the 10 things I'm most excited about for Evolution 2, and I will not struggle to feel it at all. But I do think it's nice in a way to look at what could be problem areas, and then get to see them fixed or changed, possibly before the game even comes out. I like a little imperfection, a little weirdness, a little room to grow and develop. Are any of the things on this list on your mind as well? Are there any you'd like to add to the list? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you soon for the counter to this video, the 3,947 things I'm most excited for in Evolution 2. Thank you so much for joining me, cheers much love as always, bye bye.
Houston, if you're ready, we'll maneuver. Reaching out.